Welcome to That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis Vonksness. This is a podcast about people, their passions, their life experiences, and their stories. As writer Frederick Buechner once said, the story of any one of us is in some measure the story of us all. All of us can learn something valuable from someone else's life and their stories. Join us for another conversation where we learn, laugh, and leave, seeing our own life in new ways. What's more rad than that? Welcome to another episode of That's So Rad podcast today. I'm your host, Travis. And man, I'm telling you, my rad meter today is redlining to the max. So I have a special guest on today, Dave Sherrill, am I saying that right, Sherrill?
Perfect, yeah.
Perfect, cool. And his socials handle, though, is Dave Ruins Art. So he's widely known across the internet, Instagram, and all the things as Dave Ruins Art, which we're going to talk about more. But he's a self-taught artist who owns a super cool novelty art shop in Canton, Ohio. Several years ago, Dave took a fun and innovatively creative concept that we're going to talk more about and became a huge internet sensation. His pieces have been shared by the likes of Newsweek, James Gunn, Patton Oswalt, David Ayer, and more. And Dave has now 140,000 plus followers on the gram. So welcome to the podcast today, Dave.
Oh, thanks, dude. Glad to be here.
It's awesome having you. So anything else you want to add about, yourself, family, living in Canton, anything else on that kind of about yourself?
No, that was pretty much it. You wrapped it up. You were very concise. You got everything.
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so this is really fun for me because this even how we kind of, I guess, got connected is sort of just this sort of whimsical thing that just kind of happened. So what happened, and I'm not alone in this, I'm sure, but is where recently is I was on Instagram and I just saw this story of this guy who was painting scenes of vintage thrift store landscape paintings. And what I saw in this particular post was like the AT-AT walkers on the beach from Star Wars, a TIE fighter flying with ducks in a lake, Godzilla terrorizing an old farmhouse, and there's so much more. But I was just instantly like, my jaw dropped wide open, and I also couldn't stop smiling. I mean, it's this juxtaposition of these serene scenes and then with reimagined with fantasy characters, and it just stopped me for that morning. I was just like, what is going on? So what it is for me is and I'm sure you've talked to others on this, but it's this convergence of these two worlds that don't normally meet. So you have, and that's sort of this whimsy meets fantasy meets innovation. And so anyway, I just was like, wow, I mean, this is so much about, I guess it struck me too, who I am in a way. We were kind of messaging, and you had just taken just interest in like myself, my wife's art. I talked about her as an artist, and like that was very cool, just the humility, and then just also the curiosity. So yeah, thanks for doing that. And that meant a lot even just in that. So
your wife's art's cool. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, and so we actually have a kind of, back when we were dating, we kind of had this thing of she kind of got me into doing abstract art, and then it kind of became this thing of like, trying to, kind of bond through that and impress her in some ways, or just have fun with it. And so I love that. And so art's been a big part of our story together. Before we get more into art, one of the things we talk about on the podcast is beards. You have a glorious, glorious beard. How long have you owned and operated that beard, Dave?
Since I could grow it. I actually... It doesn't matter if beards are cool or lame. I literally have to have one because I'm allergic to shaving cream.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I can't shave down here even.
Wow.
It breaks me out. So I've had a beard since there was hair to grow.
That's awesome.
They got really popular like about 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It was like there was beard memes and beard this and beard that, and I was just like, oh shit, man, this bubble's gonna pop and I'm gonna be stuck behind the times. But luckily it's just kind of gotten better. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I've developed these two skunk stripes
Oh,
coming down the straight.
nice.
I'm so excited about I've never wanted to dye my beard or change my aging process, but I am very tempted to just like darken this and this over here and just really
You
accentuate these guys right here.
you have to, I mean, you have the makings of just it, the blueprint's there. I mean, I just that's like. Well, I was going to ask you too. With all the paint, it seems like a workplace hazard. With you haven't had it like neon green by accident at some point just from splatters.
Food is a lot more common. I'm
This is
not
true.
a terribly careful person in any situation, but to be able to drop anything and it just to land and stay, I will go and talk to people. I literally like a week ago talked to one of my coworkers for about 10 minutes and then went to the bathroom. There's a giant piece of egg from my egg burrito. It's like, oh man.
Dude, that's so real. I haven't had a beard. I mean, that is glorious. I haven't had one that long, and or even yeah, not even that long ever. But up there, and I remember at some point for me, it's like it starts smelling. I always joke like weed eater exhaust and like Greek yogurt and stuff. And then you're kind of like, well, maybe I need a reset here. But
I
the
use a
food
lot of
part.
beard oils. Mine
Oh,
smells
do
pretty
you?
good. Redwood is what I
Okay,
usually like.
I love it. Well, I'll be curious to ahead to see if we end up seeing some more color there and got Fu Manchu highlighted in there.
Killer.
Let's go. So let's first talk some about just the name Dave Ruins Art. Super memorable. I love that handle. Like, just where did that kind of idea come from? Or
So I started out painting as just like I had a vintage store
mm-hmm.
and I had a painting that I thrifted and I had it for like a full year and I kept marking it down, marking it down. Finally, I was down to like $5 and I was like, and nobody still wanted it. And I was like, I don't want to throw this thing away. So I just added something to it and blew up with my friend group and they're like, "That's so cool. That's so funny." And I was like, "Whoa, cool! If they like this, I'm just going to keep doing it." And I had never painted before. I was so cocky about painting. I just said, if I put paint on the canvas, that's painting. Like,
Yeah,
what more is there to learn?
sure.
So I did it for 3 or 4 years, and then quarantine hit.
Okay.
And with quarantine, I'm on immunosuppressants for psoriatic arthritis,
Hmm.
and I was afraid to open to the public, so I started selling my vintage stuff on eBay. Well, at the time, nobody was buying anything because we didn't know if the world was ending. Everybody was freaking out, so nobody's purchasing anything. So I started doing commissions for people and painting things and selling them that, and that's how I was making my money. And so when I get done, I would put them on Reddit, which I was a big Redditor at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and people really liked it. And I was like, I might have a shot at doing something interesting here. And I've always liked that Banksy is a little bit less of. I don't care that he's anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more like a band.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not, and it's a way to be brave is to give yourself a title. You can say, well, I might not be that bold, but Dave Ruins Art is that bold. So
Yeah.
I kind of tend to give myself nicknames and fake names and stuff like that. But so one of the problems that I was having was that one, people didn't understand that I was not painting the backgrounds. So I
Sure.
would post art, and every time I would do it, I would have to say, I added Star Wars to a thrifted painting. And so
Mm.
that they would know. And I was like, I
Yep.
can't do that forever, every
Right.
single time. So, and the other problem I was having was people would be like, oh, this guy ruined that painting. He just absolutely ruined that artwork, this precious artwork.
Sure.
And because of that, I was just stuck. And so I
Yeah.
said, well, what if I call myself Dave Ruins Art? And then it says to people, one, he took some art and he ruined it. He didn't make this whole thing himself. And
Sure.
two, I know I ruined it, and it kind of takes the wind out of your sails. Everybody
Yeah.
loves Raymond. When he came up with that name, it was a way to play with. He knew that people were going to hate his show. Anytime you're in the public, people are going to hate what you do.
Right.
So when you call yourselves "Everybody Loves Raymond" or "Everybody Hates Chris," it
Right.
kind of takes the wind out of their
Yeah.
sails and makes it
Yeah.
a little bit easier for you. So that's where the
Yeah.
name came from.
Okay.
Uh, as I grew as an artist, now I paint real paintings from blank canvas,
Cool.
and it kind of like, I love art. I
Yeah.
ruin
Yeah.
art, but it's
Yeah.
my legacy. I just stick with it. It's fun.
No, I love yeah, and it makes total sense of the way to kind of sort of get ahead of some of the criticism, but also kind of have fun with it and embrace it,
Yeah.
and that's a great way to have viewed that. So I think what as we talk a little bit about just this, if we land here for a little bit on this concept that you started with, I think what also hit me with it was not just the incredible creativity and the kind of whimsy there, was just I'm always fascinated by innovation. There's a great line by, I don't know who said this, but they said we're most alive when we're at the border between two things. And there's the Medici effect, is this idea that innovation happens at the convergence of two different fields, and you'll see that in social sciences and stuff like that. But it leads to an explosion of new possibilities.
Can you
And
spell that?
so, what's up?
Can you spell that Medici effect?
Yeah, the Medici Effect is an incredible book. Check it out. There's a subtitle with it I don't have in front of me, but the Medici Effect, and it talks through it all about various historical creations, and that the idea here is that that so like I work I'm a part of a nonprofit solving foster care nationally. America's Kids Belong,
Nice.
and yeah, and so we're trying to do some innovative things there. But I think one of the things we realize in that field is that there's a lot of people, maybe if you're in child welfare, where you may be an expert on the problems and some of the stuff, but you're not necessarily going to be an expert on the solutions, because there may be solutions that have never converged into your world. Maybe someone from FedEx, and that's kind of the point of the Medici Effect book, on the scene, if they're invited in or not, or businesses, for instance, maybe there's a solution here in the nonprofit space that they're going to bring, because it's a whole explosion of new realities and possibilities that they're not constrained that the social worker is. So all that is sort of this geek out setup to say something about your art kind of, for me, was just a visual even of that, even though it's having fun and it's and you're accomplishing something in that. But I think that's what hit me as well.
Cool. I
Yeah.
never thought. I never heard of that. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, for sure. So, and so, just as we camp out here just a little bit, I wanted to, you kind of already talked about, we're kind of having fun, and what if I add to this thing and the whole Reddit thing? I mean, so kind of your friend group, and then it really takes off and blows up I mean, how did this idea all of a sudden go from sort of locally and things, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's in the hands of like major people nationally, like
So I had done a few pieces for friends, put them on Reddit, and they had done very, very well. I
mm-hmm.
thought 100,000 upvotes, something like that. Like
Yep.
a good amount of upvotes. So I was motivated to just keep doing it at that point. And I had a painting. It was on my wall right over there. I had it for years. And I just always thought, like, it would be cool if an Imperial Walker was right in that blank spot right there. It looks like it needs something. So my friend said, "Hey, will you do a painting for my girlfriend?" I said, "Hell yes, I would love to do that."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I've got this painting. Let me take a picture of it for you." I said, I want to put it in Imperial Walker." He's like, "Do whatever you want." And I was like, "Killer." So I stayed up that night painting until like 2 or 3 in the morning, I think. And towards the end of it, I started thinking, like, well, what if this was more of an invasion? So I started putting like little chicken walkers and TIE fighters and all that stuff in the background. and I'm almost done. It's really late for me, and I'm pretty tired. But I started thinking, I was like, okay, what if R2D2 was the only rebel facing off this army? So I was like, fantastic. So I get a little R2D2 toy, and I take a photo of it, and I'm using it for a reference. And I'm really tired, and I'm not mixing my paint properly. I'm just kind of hurrying and triple loading it, which crazy made it match the painting so well, because these are speed paintings. What I'm dealing with,
Okay.
they were made in factories. A lot of people that get upset are like, "You ruined someone's art." I didn't. I didn't. I guarantee you that it was not made by one guy. It was made by a factory, because everything in the
okay.
80s and 90s, 90% of the oil paintings in the world at that time were coming out of China and Portugal, where there's these factories of artists that one guy would do the background of the clouds, the next guy would do the mountains, the next guy would do the trees, the next guy would do the stream, and then the next guy would sign it Rodrigo. So I finished that painting, and I hit post, and then my phone, I had my alert sounded like a cash for cha-ching. And I was like, oh, awesome. I got a sale. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Wow.
And then it just started to sound like a pachinko machine. It was just like, I sound like I was in like Las Vegas and everybody was winning. And I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? So I go on, and it has just exploded. It's just there's thousands of comments. I can't even keep up with them. So, I'm a polite person. I don't like to ignore anything. So
Sure.
I was going in there, I was commenting back and forth. And that hit so hard that it started getting shared just everywhere. And people were messaging me. Magazines wanted to do interviews, and I get a Facebook. My wife actually came outside. I'm telling my mailman about what's going on, and my wife comes outside and she says, "Have you looked on Facebook yet?" And I was like, "No." She goes, "We got a message from Newsweek that they want to write about you."
Wow.
And I was like, "That's bullshit."
No way.
And I go on. It seems legit, and I'm like, "Hey, yeah, that sounds great. Just let me know what you need." So we talk back and forth just a little bit, and they posted an article about me and what I was doing, and how well it was going on Reddit. And it was bizarre, but from that specific moment, I was a professional artist. Like that made me into an artist that was known internationally with a lot of credentials. And
incredible. After
that happened, I said, well, I better learn how to paint.
Man, yeah.
So that got me into studying, and I'm at this point in my life where it's just a matter of I've got the job. I want to see where I could take it. I wanted to go to art school when I was just out of high school, and my parents said, it's really expensive. You're not a good student. Maybe we shouldn't invest this much in it. And it upset me at the time. Looking back, best decision they ever made, because I would have half-assed it as a surly 18-year-old. I would have not done any of the work, and I would have had the same attitude that the young artists I teach have, which is, no. What I make is art.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's my art. And I would have been so cocky. And then I would have gotten out of art school. I would have never got a job and never sold any paintings. I would have been angry at everyone else for that instead of myself. And I would have given up. And to this day, I'd probably be selling real estate or something. So, I'm wildly glad that it took that direction and ended up where it ended up.
Wow, that is fascinating. I've listened to some of your other interviews, and I don't know that I've heard all of that part. Because it also reminds me. So, like, my wife did go to Memphis School of Art, and
nice.
And I think to some degree it broke her in a way. Kind of to your point of, like, even just some of the, like, profs critiques and sort of just I don't know. So, but then, like, also thinking of what a what a fascinating scenario where, I mean, not totally, but like you sort of have this like Bob Ross happy acts. I mean, it's not a, I mean, you were trying to do that, but it becomes this thing where then it launches you into credibility and almost maybe a new love for art that you had and maybe went a little bit dormant or something. And then now out of that, I'm, I don't want to say it. Do you feel like a responsibility too, or did it feel like, no, it did. It did definitely like, kind of the acclaim and stuff. Like it, like, did you also feel a sense like I need to like learn more stuff and become sort of a voice in this space, or was it all like, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it does. Uh, Part of it, when you get, first thing I did when I became a famous artist was to buy a book by Jerry Saltz called How to Be an Artist.
nice.
And the first thing it said is you don't want to become a famous artist very fast.
Mm.
And I was like, well, shit.
Whoops.
So the second thing it said is it said you want to be about 23 years old, and I was 45, and I was
Okay.
like, okay, uh, 0 for 2. But when you get celebrated and lauded on a global scale, the the artist around you will become very, very frustrated with
Mm.
your success as
Mm.
it begins to amplify their, I don't want to say failure, but struggle.
Sure.
Because there are, in my community, uh, actually, I live on the third floor of a building. There's only 3 apartments. And at the time, the other 2 artists had PhDs in painting.
Okay.
And they were phenomenal artists who struggle. They barely sell any paintings. They just do it as a in between jobs and stuff. And I knew that I wasn't as skilled as I was for the opportunities that were being given to me. I wasn't as trained and knowledgeable. So I felt a responsibility to learn as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt a lot of pain from the rejection
Mm.
of my own local community and my what I thought were my very, very good friends.
Hmm.
And some of them I don't even talk to anymore because they
Sure.
became so upset by what I was doing. But there was also a situation where I was making art for people and sending it to them, and they were disappointed in what I
Uh,
did.
oh man.
So
Okay.
I said, okay, if this is my job, I want to be a craftsman. My father was a welder,
Cool.
a plumber, pipe fitter, welder by trade, and he took it very seriously. He was a craftsman. He had a workshop in his garage where he filmed or not filmed. He created art out of plow discs and
Oh,
scrap
cool.
metal and garbage. But everything he did the right way, and he knew his tools backwards and forwards. And I said, and he did very well with his journal. I said, if this is going to be my job,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a craftsman at the same level. So I started working with art professors. I knew several art professors just from weekly painting and drawing classes. So I started going to them and said, I'm studying very, very hard, but as my own teacher, I don't know if I'm missing things, and I could sail right past something that could level me up greatly. I said, if could I possibly pay you to look at everything I've done in the last couple of months and tell me where I need to study and
Mm.
then give me a little bit of guidance and like a 1 hour session. And they're like, yeah, cool, $20. And I was like, $20? That's all it
Wow.
takes? So I would hire college professors to evaluate my art, and they would tell me things like, okay, you really need to learn composition.
Okay.
And here's a real rough scenario. And so I would say, okay, composition, got it. So I would study, I would buy books, I'd read
Yep.
about composition, I would watch YouTube videos, I would do anything that taught me composition. I would do that for 2 or 3 months, and I would get to the point where I felt very, very confident about it. And then I would go to a different art professor and I would say, I want you to just evaluate what I'm doing and tell me. And I would not tell them what I've already learned and what I haven't learned, because I wanted them to come in blank, just like the
Mm-hmm.
last guy did, and say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, looking at your art, this is what you need. And that was insanely valuable. Uh, After that, after I got all the foundation, well, after I just started learning, when I just started learning, best thing that ever happened to me is an art studio a block and a half from my house said,
Okay.
"Hey, we want another art teacher. Would you consider teaching disabled people art?" And I was like, "I don't know art. I don't know that I can teach." And they said, "Well, it's not terribly important that they get a college degree in art. What I really want is for them to experience the attitude and example of a professional artist and what they do and how they work."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, I can do that. So what do you want me to do?" They said, "Whatever you're learning at the time, come in and teach it to the class. And if you don't have anything to teach, bring in your art piece and just show them how you work specifically."
Okay.
So, well, yeah, I can do that. I At that time I did not need a job. I, it did two things for me. It solidified the things that I was teaching. I think Seneca said, "As you teach, you learn." And
Mm.
that is wildly true,
Wow.
because when I was there and I was teaching, I would go get with my college professor. They would say, "You need to learn values." So I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, I'm going to learn values." And then by the end of the week, I was already creating a class for teaching values to people. And so I learned it, but then I had to prove it and then learn it again.
Ah.
And that really figure or solidified things. Teaching the students at night, or I'm sorry, during the day at that place was very satisfying. But it got to a point after a couple of years where I wanted to teach people who are neurotypical
Yep.
and see the difference in the two, because there was a lot of times where I'd sit down with the disabled students I had,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a wild variety of people. Some of them very functioning, some of them very low functioning,
Sure.
and so I sometimes I could teach things, and sometimes I could show them things, but it didn't ever really click. So I wanted to have night students of people who just were really genuinely wanting to learn and grow. So I offered that up, and I did about 6 or 9 months of teaching classes
Mm-hmm.
where same thing. I was like, I would go in, I would say, well, I'm going to teach you the basics of painting, and then I want you to tell me the direction that you want to go in, and we'll start going that way. So some people would say, I had one student, he wanted to uh, paint like Bob Ross.
Mm-hmm.
So we taught the beginnings of painting, and then we said, all right, let's learn a sky and some clouds, and let's
Mm-hmm.
learn a mountain, let's learn some trees and stuff like that. But to teach those things, I had to stop and go, okay, I really need to like figure out trees and mountains and all that stuff.
Mm.
Then I became a little bit frustrated, because at that point they don't want to go back to the foundations. And
Mm.
even though I know, in my head I'm like, if I touch this person brushwork, they would level up greatly. And if I taught them shadow anatomy,
Mm-hmm.
their mountains and their trees will be so much better. But once you get to the point where you're making paintings, it's hard to get somebody to go backwards and start learning foundation stuff and doing the boring drills and stuff.
Right.
That's when I said, well, I'm just doing little 1 hour classes, and it's making me spend an hour before and then 30 minutes after. So I'm really working about 2.5 hours, and I'm making around minimum wage. So like, what if I made a video series where I'm teaching the foundations and the students don't have the option of saying like, hey, I just really want to draw skulls.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's where I started working on. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and then I ended up finding a company that wanted to help people grow and build their own art classes. And so when I started, they said, we want you to make a 3 hour class. And I was like, I can do a 3 hour class. And then the next meeting, they said, like, okay, so we're doing a 6 hour class. And I was like, 6 hour class? They're like, yeah, about 6 hours will be easier for us to sell. And I was like, you know what? Really, what I want to teach is more than 3 hours already. And so the next meeting, they were like, okay, so when we get done with 7 hours of class, I was like, 7 hours of class. And then it became 8 hours of class.
Okay.
Actually, no, they stopped at 7, and I started making a 7 hour class, and it ended up being 8.5, 8.75, something like that. And that's even with me like culling some stuff, like me taking out like if I really want to do a Bob Ross type class, nobody can learn to paint an entire painting in an hour. So when I get to the foundations, if I did it in Bob Ross's style, where I'm showing you my palette and I'm painting and you're watching and learning, those classes should really be about 5 or 6 hours long. But I can't have one painting a class 5 or 6 hours. So I kind of do them in sections, and then I time lapse my performance of the art, so you can watch it, and then you stop and you perform that on your own. Then I time lapse another section, and then you look at it on your own. And for as far as composition is, I just kind of show them like, okay, this is how I drew this. This was the ideas, and this is how you actually build a painting. A lot of artists, they think when you look at a person, you look at them in the eyes. That's the windows to the soul. It tells you a lot about them. As they're talking, you start to walk around. You look at their mouth, and are they smiling or frowning? And you look at kind of how they're holding their cheeks and how they're holding their eyebrows. And then as you get bored, you start looking at, oh, this guy's got a Foo Fighters hat on. That's cool. Then you kind of look at their T-shirt and whatever else. And when a beginning painter starts painting, that's the way they think they should paint. So they start drawing an eye.
Okay.
And then they kind of like, I think this is how an eyebrow looks, so I'm going to do that. And you put on the nose that you learned when you were 7 years old.
All right.
And you flesh it out that way. What happens is your composition is bad because things are like kind of stuck way over here and it's not centered. And instead what you do is you kind of start with blobby shapes, and you build out the structure, and you find all these pieces. And that's really what makes a good painting, is learning to, when you start to learn to paint, you say, I want to learn about reds and stuff like that. But really, red is just, if your values are good, you can delete red and make it purple, and it looks just as good.
Sure.
And you can change green into yellow, and it's just as good. I kind of got off track. I don't remember what we've been talking about.
Well, well, that's fascinating, of like the process of like what you've kind of learned and unearthed for teaching. And I love what you talked about, the observations about people's eyes and what they're, because I'm sure you can also see where some of your students then are holding way too much tension, or like you can tell like this is like, you look like you're on a roller coaster, dude, like versus maybe someone that's really just trying to like, the joy is emanating, and you know, it's like right? Because you got some people that are trying to get it right. It's got to be right, they think, or it's got to be this.
That
And
is
there's
the number one thing that I teach that is not necessary to teach. You should be able to just go, I'm gonna paint something. If it's not good, I'm just gonna throw it away.
sure.
And I teach people to paint all the time, and they're, I don't know, I don't know. And it's because we as a society, we hold art and artists in great esteem.
Yeah.
We see them as these magical entities that they sit down and the world flows through them onto the
Right.
canvas. And in reality, nobody does that.
Hmm.
Vincent van Gogh has bad paintings. He
Mm.
has a lot of beautiful paintings.
Yep.
Actually, when he died, he had nothing but bad paintings because nobody liked them. Uh,
Okay.
his 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 brother liked his paintings. His sister-in-law liked his paintings, but a lot of people didn't. In fact, there's one specific painting called "The Potato Eaters," and it's terrible. It's really bad. I would, mind you, it's worth millions of dollars right now. But the Potato Eaters, you can tell he spent a lot of time. There's about six characters. There's an entire dining room with a table, and he showed it to his friend, Rena. I can't remember his name.
Hmm.
He showed it to a painter friend of his, and the painter said, "This is awful." He just ripped him and
Oh
said,
man.
"You know, where is this guy's stomach? This knee does not connect to his hip. This table is not in perspective, and
Sure.
it's brown. It's so brown. This is you should not paint. You should not be doing anything with painting. You should probably just quit and do something else." And it ended their friendship, and he never
Wow.
spoke to that person again, and probably remained resentful for the rest of his life. But that spurred him into learning.
Mm.
And Van Gogh was not someone who he sat down and the world flowed through him. He begged his brother to give him books on color
Hmm.
theory, and he moved to France and he met all of the other impressionist artists and learned what they were doing and talked about art and procedure. He learned about his tools. He was very specific in which colors he used. It wasn't naive at all.
Hmm.
Pablo Picasso, one of the greatest painters of all time, he had maybe a 0.07% success rate with his paintings. He did so many of them
Okay.
that we are still flooded with prints and paintings and all this stuff done by Picasso, but only a handful of his works are famous
Hmm.
and regarded as masterworks.
Fascinating.
And that's literally every Bob Ross, same thing.
Yep.
I was shocked to learn when I first started looking at Bob Ross. I found a website called 2 Inch Brush
Hmm.
or 3 Inch Brush, something like that, and they have every Bob Ross lesson that was ever done. And his mountains are great, his skies are great, his reflections, all that are great. But whenever he would paint a human face, and he did that in his first season, they were all terrible
Okay.
because he didn't know
Yeah.
everything, and,
Sure.
and he needed to sit down and learn those lessons. But how can you do that when you're painting
Right.
live on TV?
Right.
So
These.
a lot of that anxiety that I have to talk my students out of, a lot of that is completely unnecessary,
Hmm.
and it's just a result of how much we think. It's a lot of our egos.
Hmm.
uh, I'm When you see a beautiful art piece, you think to yourself, if I was going to be a painter, that is the kind of beautiful thing that I would show the
Hmm.
world. That is the gift that I would want to give them. And then when you sit down and you paint and you make something just an absolute turd, you go, I'm a failure. I'm
Yeah.
I'm just deluding myself by thinking this is what I need. Nope. They all do it. I do it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
guarantee you there is a stack of probably 30 paintings back there that's
Yeah.
just friggin' awful.
Yeah.
and I throw them away. I don't show them to anybody.
Yeah.
Or I paint over them, or I can't put new canvas on it or something.
But they were
But
part
that's
of the
kind of what you
process.
get to do.
Yeah. That's really well said, that whole thing. And I loved, one of the things that, I'm really fascinated by, just even creativity, and studied some on that. And there was, I think this guy's a painter and a writer, Erwin McManus, but he talked about that he studied creativity for 30 years. And he said that the greatest divide isn't between artists and those who are not, but those who understand they're creative and those convinced they aren't. And that's what I love about what you're doing with your teaching in your classes, because you're not just teaching skills, you're reminding people you are creative. And that's a message I'm always kind of constantly getting out there, is you're creative. If you we all are creative. I mean, I guess, as someone personally who believes in God, I believe as the master creator, then anyone else would be in that image a creative. So the idea of, everybody is creative. And
Did you
it's
say
on.
Erwin McManus?
Yeah, Erwin McManus.
Okay, I'll look it up.
And I'll send you that link too. But gosh, I love that. So, do you want to talk a little bit more, Dave, at all about, as we kind of get in this home stretch, about your art school that you've talked all about all of this, but like anything else about getting engaged with that, or how to connect to that, or more about the school and classes?
Yeah, DaveRuinsArtSchool.com is the website. I What I was afraid of was that it would just be. I take online web classes, painting classes from artists that I want to do, and two of the things that frustrate me is, one, there is no criticism or involvement with the teacher directly. So if I paint something and I'm missing some of his technique, there is no real opportunity for me to hear from them.
Yeah.
So I wanted that. I have a Discord group for all of my students, and they can engage in that or not engage in it. But it's a place where we can post our art. We can encourage each other. I post inspirational quotes about art just because art is it comes from three different places. It comes from your head, your heart, and your hands. Your head is where your knowledge of painting is and the traditional art skills that you learned. Your hands need to practice, and they need to be coordinated and know how to flow. Your heart is where your inspiration is, your attitude towards life in general, and your attitude towards everything, and who you are as a person. So there's no real way to teach the heart part of it. The example I give to my students is, if you look at the apples that I paint in my examples, they are somewhat brutish. They're a little bit sloppy. They are clumsy, but they're bold, and they have weight, and they feel very real without being photorealistic. And I intend none of that. That just comes out when I paint an apple, and it comes out when I paint everything, but because that's who I am as a person, and that's the heart. So I can't teach heart, but I can inspire you to keep going, and that inspiration of the quotes of ancient artists, and the brotherhood that we have of older artists, and that fills your heart just a little bit.
Yeah.
and gets the fear out of it. I like to tell people that they can throw their paintings away. That's my favorite thing to do. Is when they're worried, it's like, so what?
Yeah.
During my art class, the first thing one of the lessons I did was an abstract. And I don't paint abstract. And I was, cocky, foolish. I was like, how hard can an abstract be?
Right.
Put some lines and make some
yeah.
It was so bad. I literally took a razor, I cut it into little pieces, and threw it into separate dumpsters. I was so
A
embarrassed. I was like,
separate dumpster.
I don't want anybody to accidentally see this art. And I told my students that I was like, and I had already filmed an entire class. I edited it. I photographed the painting. I was like, this is just awful. Nobody deserves to see this horrible work. And I tell my students that. I let them know and do that stuff. But talking about the history of art
Mm-hmm.
and the artists that came before us, when I was young, and I see my young students do the same thing, they say, yeah, if I'm doing art, it's right. There is no wrong way to make art, man.
Mm.
There's no wrong way, man. But they see it as rules to be
Mm-hmm.
rebelled against.
Mm.
Instead, I like to reframe it as sacred observations from a fellowship of brother artists that extends back
Hmm.
to caveman times, man.
Sure.
The things that I learn and I teach, when you use burnt sienna, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, that is a color that's available, and every single artist probably uses and has burnt sienna. It is made of clay and it's
Mm-hmm.
brown. That is the same as the first caveman art that went on the wall. That was clay that was
Mm-hmm.
colored and placed on the wall, probably with fingers or hands.
Hmm.
But I use a Rembrandt triangle whenever I paint. And what that is that the lighting comes from the top left,
Mm-hmm.
and the shadows allow light to just hit a little triangle of light.
Mm.
And we don't know if Rembrandt invented that or if he saw other people do it and he's like, that's a tasteful treat
Hmm.
right there. But that's what, 1600s, 1700s. I'm
Wow.
not really sure
Sure.
off the top of my head, but that's thousands of years old, and it has been passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down. It's been in books, it's been in magazines, it's been in YouTube videos, it's been in everything. And now I am sharing it. I'm part of that tradition, and every single artist that paints seriously will discover something new, and they may hand that to the next person, and you don't know,
That's
man. in
cool.
in 3056, are people going to be
Right.
doing, well, the painter Dave ruins art.
Yeah, but no, that's
He
that.
invented something called the Rembrandt triangle. But,
That is very cool. I've never thought of that brotherhood and the passing
oh
on
man,
of gifts
it
and
sounds sexist. I've got to find another word other than brotherhood, because there
yeah,
are fantastic women artists that have,
sure.
Grandma Moses is one of my very, very favorite artists. But brotherhood just says that we're family,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we are. I as an artist, even when I began, was family with Van Gogh, and
Hmm.
family with Picasso, and family with all of these other people who spent their lives accomplishing this one thing,
Hmm.
which is to try and make something new. Another
Hmm.
beautiful thing that somebody said recently, that I just love, is that science is science.
Hmm.
If Einstein had not found E equals MC squared, the next guy would have.
Hmm.
E equals MC squared is true
Yeah.
when they discovered it, but
Yeah.
Van Gogh's A Starry Night was only accomplished by Vincent Van Gogh in 1880 or 1895, I think, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only person that could discover that arrangement of colors, that fake world of style and emotion. And the same thing for every single painting I do. It's the first time that anyone has ever done that, and the last time that anyone will ever do that.
That is powerful.
So when you're painting, I think personally you're doing something sacred, and you're
That's
part of something very big.
That's beautifully said. I love the juxtaposition of science. That what a cool example of that. Yeah, compared to then art, where it is like you uniquely. That's you, the from your soul, your heart, your and then your gifts. But very well said, Dave. I love that.
And
Um,
it's also incredibly good for your brain
mm,
to paint. That's why historically there are no artists with anxiety or depression.
hmm. With not even depression.
I'm kidding.
Oh, isn't that like kind of the
That's kind of
the
the two, like,
yeah.
it's very good for your brain, but every artist in the world's been crazy. A lot of that actually has to do with lead paint. Uh,
Oh wow.
yeah, Van Gogh
Okay.
would eat his paints. Actually, he would eat his paints trying to kill himself towards the end. But painters didn't understand uh, the damage that lead could do to
Yeah.
you. And even now, it's still a toxic activity, but you can
Yeah.
mitigate that toxicity with gloves or being careful. But
Yeah.
you know, a lot of artists in that time, they would paint and then they lick their brush to sharpen
Wow.
it. And definitely
Licking
don't do
paint.
that.
Yeah, licking the lead right off there.
Yeah. Now it's more
Well,
about microplastics.
for sure.
Acrylic paint is not as toxic as it was. Most acrylic paint is not made with the pigments that were originally intended. They're made with a version of it. So it's not like, a lot of times it's not cadmium yellow, it's cadmium yellow hue.
Oh,
So that
okay.
people who are used to using cadmium yellow can now get that exact same color and consistency, but with something else. But uh,
Gotcha.
acrylic paint is microplastics. So I
Okay.
teach people to be more careful with their paint water and
Mm.
learn to suss it out in a way that's not going to create more damage to our environment.
Interesting. I didn't know that. We watched the that recent documentary on Bob Ross. I don't know if it's on Netflix or whatever, but where was it the lacquer? I mean, there was something he was standing above at every single paint session that was like, because I don't know, he got cancer. Was it lung cancer? But it was he was breathing in fumes constantly beyond
Yeah,
just the paint that yeah, it
yeah.
talked
Acrylic.
about. So
He's an oil painter, and
yep.
oil painters really have that problem. You have to be ventilated, and
Hmm.
Bob couldn't open a window. He couldn't create ventilation because
Yeah.
he was recording
Sure.
audio.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, was
Uh,
that why he did it? But I think I actually see people the artists with the most behavioral problems that I see are graffiti artists and spray paint artists, and I really honestly believe that spray paint is, while I love graffiti and I love spray
hmm
paint, I think that it damages your brain quite a
Mm,
bit to be standing
yeah.
this close to an aerosol
Sure.
can that's also mixed with pigments and stuff like
Oh
that.
man. Yeah. Yeah. And
I
then the
and I
particles in
love
there.
graffiti. I spray painted, and it
Yeah.
was probably the
Hey.
least damaging thing that I did to my brain in that time. But
Just one of the other things. So as we I have a couple final questions to close this out. But I wanted to go back to as we started on this with, doing scenes with whether it's Lord of the Rings or adding some of these fantasy things in a landscape. Is that style of painting something that still is fun that sort of now with all your classes and sort of, like where do you then in your own art find, where you don't want to lose the sense of, how do I say this? Kind of the magic and mystery and because as a teacher, I know you're learning, and that's providing incredible, I'm sure, gratitude in ways and things. But are you? Where do you have to personally go back to kind of to still have that magic for creativity? Is there a certain style or type of stuff you do?
um, I am trying to develop my own style, and I think that a
Hmm.
lot of what influenced me was the speed paintings of the motel paintings that
Mm-hmm.
I have, which are thick. It's called impasto in by snobby art people, but fat thick paint.
Okay.
That's my favorite. I really, really, really love painting like Van Gogh, where there's these flowy things, and I know that's shooting me in the foot to do one of the most overused and celebrated styles. But as someone who did a lot of psychedelics in the '90s, in 2000s, and 2020s, that appeals to me the most.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping is that as I go and use that style, that I end up somewhere new. Van Gogh
Mm-hmm.
died early in his life. I have always wondered, like, what would he have done if he had gotten to 60 or 70 or 80?
Mm.
And while I'm very, very interested in doing that now, and I almost have to stop myself from every time wanting
Mm-hmm.
to paint like that. As far as fan art goes and Star Wars and
Uh-huh.
all of that, as we reach AI and we're losing a lot of respect for the original artists, and
Yeah.
while I had to contend with Star Wars is my favorite franchise, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Those elaborate, huge things, it really appeals to me, and my neurodivergence is
Mm-hmm.
excited by those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to stop and think at one point, because my art was getting shared so much, and it was
Mm.
all of my Star Wars art.
Yeah.
And it was, I had to stop and go, okay, George Lucas has seen this, because you know that he has thousands of employees, and all of
Oh
them
yeah.
are on the internet and probably
Yeah.
saw my work.
Yeah.
And when one of them said, like, "Hey, this is really cool, you should check it out,"
Right.
or
Right.
"You
For
want to
sure.
see something that's," and I had to contend with, like, maybe it's not respectful for me to
Hmm.
take someone that I admire so much as a hero, a world creator, a
Yeah.
world builder, and to just take his designs that he paid Ralph McQuarrie for,
Mm-hmm.
and he paid so and so for, and to just use them on my own, and to sell them is is um, might be hurtful to him, even though I have a right as a parody artist,
Mm-hmm.
being someone that I'm taking Star Wars, the best art in the world, and I'm turning it into what's considered globally as the worst art in the world, the motel art,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
cheap, what was sold in Kmart in 1970s,
Sure.
1980s. Everyone's grandmother had this.
Right.
So it is legit parody, and I have a legal right to do it. But at the same time, anyone can sue you for anything they want. So
Yeah. Yeah.
should LucasArts decide, I don't really want this guy playing with our IP,
Yeah.
they could sue me, and I would say, I'm good.
Hold on.
I'm going to stop. They have not. They've never reached
Yeah.
out. They've never said anything to me. Uh, but if it made, I kind of have a vow to not do any harm to anyone anyway,
Yeah.
even if it's just
Yeah.
emotional damage. So
Yeah.
if what I'm doing could be disrespectful to George Lucas and his
Sure.
just universe
Yeah.
of artists and characters, then I need to stop doing it. So
Yeah.
I'm still going to do Star Wars art, to tell you the truth, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to further push it in directions that I don't see other people doing.
Mm.
In fact, I have another big painting planned that is Star Wars themed, but it's going to be in a direction that is wildly not what Star Wars would do. So,
No. Stay tuned.
yeah, stay tuned.
In the tough times we're in, for all kinds of reasons, there's something why, like, this fan art as well, I think is hitting still and is really, like, needed, because also just that sense of, like, imagination, wonder, whimsy, laughter. I mean, there's a humor element in some ways to me of, like, it's just some of those scenes are just like we need this, in this
Yeah.
time. So yeah, I think there's coping out of it. Final questions on this. Thanks so much for all these, just going deep on it. Where are you currently if you said it in a short way, of, like, finding inspiration? Where's Dave where are you finding yourself inspired lately?
every good artist has a list of things. There's this thing called an artist morgue, and Robert Crumb is the first person that I saw have this, and uh, he in the documentary movie, he was like flipping through his artist morgue, and there were photographs of. He had his friend drive him around because Crumb doesn't drive, and he would photograph fences and old gas stations and electrical lines, trees and stuff like that. And I do the same thing where when I'm really inspired by something, like I'm very obsessed right now with the Game of Thrones tale and
Mm-hmm.
a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So I will screenshot and photograph stills and put those into a place. So when I get to a spot where I don't know what I'm going to paint, my inspiration, I start digging through my morgue, which is just
Mm-hmm.
a big folder on my phone, and then I can find things and new ideas. My next thing that I'm doing is a Big Lebowski painting. I host a showing of the Big Lebowski. I've done it for like 8 years. I
Nice.
do a new art piece every year, and I've got it in 1 week, and I don't know what to do, but I do know that there's a big painting, a big artist morgue of things where I can go like, okay, I really like Van Gogh. I really like kind of this Picasso style. I
Mm.
like these street art pieces. What if there's a street art thing called like the exploding head where they pull everything apart and there's brains and everything is kind of dissected in a cartoonish
Mm-hmm.
way. I was like, well, yeah, maybe I could do that with Big Lebowski or something like that. So if you get stuck, if you feel uninspired, taking two things and trying to connect them in a new way, that's a good idea. And
Uh,
usually it usually excites you to say like, can I even do this? So,
yeah, yeah. Well, it goes back to that quote of like the intersection of two things is where we're most alive, and that's even that example. You're like, wow, can I do that? It just pushes you. And
yeah.
um, final question, and I asked this to all the guests, and you're a fascinating one with this one because there's another element with painting and stuff. But if you could design a billboard, what would be on it, and would it be one of your paintings? I mean, I'm imagining driving on I-40 down here and
I'm
what
gonna
might be a Dave billboard?
I have a permission to do a billboard, and I just haven't done it yet. But there's an attorney here, and he's one of those billboard attorneys. He's Tim Misney, and at first he's this very big, 6'6". He's bald headed, no hair on his.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think he has eyebrows. But it used to be like his eyebrow is cocked. He'd be like this, and it said, "We'll make them pay." I make them pay. Tim Misney.
Yep.
And he just had billboards. Like, man, this dude must spend like
Everywhere.
$1 million on billboards.
Right.
And what he does specifically is he takes accident victims, wrongful, hospital injury,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and he makes the insurance companies pay. That's what specifically
Mm-hmm.
what he
Yep.
means by it. But eventually he started getting closer and closer on his billboard until he had a billboard that was just his eyes and his cocked eyebrow, and it said nothing. And you drive by and you'd be like, I know who that is and what he does. So
That's awesome.
his name is
Nothing.
Misney,
Okay.
and I was at I was selling in a art fair, and somebody had a Misfits shirt and it was upside down, and it said Misprints on it, and I was like, that's funny. Somebody should make one that says Misney. So I did it,
Nice.
and I changed the ghoul to be
Yeah.
like his eyebrows and his big bald head and stuff like that. And I thought I was just going to make like 10 of those shirts for my friends. And I posted them, and they just went viral and nuts. And everybody's buying them, and everybody wanted this shirt. And people started tagging Tim Misney in it. I was like, dude, no,
Oh, here we go.
And instead, he invited me up to his house for a picnic.
Really?
We hung out, and I was like, hey, I really want to do a Van Gogh's A Starry Night billboard, but with your big head coming out of the background. He's like, just do it. You get done, I'll put it
Wow.
on a billboard. And I was like, heck yeah. So, yeah, there's
That's
a billboard in the
awesome.
works. I just have to
So that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, sometime.
Wow, that's hilarious. That's amazing. What a story. That is amazing.
It's hard to do a painting billboard because it's like it's very skinny. It's a very rectangle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
A semi truck. So.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of it that way. Well, as far as like people finding you, your stuff, Arrowhead Vintage, you're still selling like prints and different things, and is some of that still active? Okay, cool.
Yeah, DaveRuinsArt.com.
Okay.
That'll actually redirect you to Arrowhead Canton, which was my vintage store website. Eventually, that'll go away, and it'll just be DaveRuinsArt.com.
Cool.
And then DaveRuinsArtSchool.com is also my art school. So if you want to buy art, go to DaveRuinsArt.com. If you want to learn to make your own art to sell, DaveRuinsArtSchool.com.
That's awesome. I'll post all these links, and yeah, I'm happy to. I've been sharing, like I told you, with my friends, and I definitely want to buy some prints and just and check out even the school and share the word on that as well. So, yeah, man, thanks so much, Dave. This has been a lot of fun and just great hearing from all your insights and the things you're learning.
Killer. Thanks, Travis. I appreciate it.
All right, stay rad. Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Check out the show notes for any links or resources shared in the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, it would be really appreciated if you'd subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with friends. May we all remember these words from writer Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.